Good morning. It's a Wednesday. Today is December 8th, 2021. And it's also the fourth day of the month of Tevet. And so we're getting a little bit of a late start talking about this month, but better late than never. And I really, really wanted to come and share some of the stuff that I've been learning about this and sharing with you guys about what this month is all about. And so let's jump into the meaning of this special month of Tevet as we're ending the year on our Gregorian calendar. That is. So it's the 10th month in the Jewish calendar, counting from Nisan. 10 is the number of godly authority, like the 10 commandments. You'll see all the ways that God speaks through his numbers, right? It's godly authority. It brings about a sense of order and consistency and boundaries and all those things, right? It's beautiful. It's we want to pray for godly authority in our homes, in our country, and in our world. We want to be praying for that, like really align with that. Think of that in your prayers this month. It's a month to really align with that. We want to establish it in our churches and everywhere. So being united in this, that's what this month is specifically about. In Jewish tradition, its name, which is written in the book of Esther, was acquired in Babylonia, and it shares a root with the Hebrew word tav, which means good. So this month begins the final days of Hanukkah. Hanukkah was just finishing as the month began, and it internalizes the message of the ever increasing lights of the menorah. So how Hanukkah every night you get to light another candle, which means the light is increasing. What a beautiful metaphor! What a beautiful symbol, right? So it reminds us of the power of good over evil. And it's really awesome to reveal that good is hidden in our lives and in the world around us. And so, in the midst of destruction, there is mercy. Beautiful message that Hanukkah brings. So Tevet occurs in the wintertime. It's the first month in the winter season. So we're kicking off this new season of winter. In fact, the entire winter season is sometimes called Tekufat, which is the season of Tevet. So in Jewish tradition, they usually name the seasons the first month, what the name of the first month in that season is. The 10th of Tevet, which today is the 4th. So on the 10th of Tevet, if you want to practice this as a Hebrew tradition, is a fast day. And it commemorates the start of the siege of Jerusalem, which led to the destruction of the first holy temple. So this was in the year 3,336, which was 425 years before Christ, and that led to the destruction of which would happen 2.5 years later on the 9th of Av, but it began there. So on a fast day, the divine attribute of mercy is able to be drawn down into this world. So by fasting over the destruction of the temple, what the Hebrew teaching is that one sweetens God's anger with Israel, which was the cause of the destruction. So the sages explain that every generation for which the temple is not rebuilt, it is as though the temple was destroyed for that generation. So as such, a fast day is not really a sad day, but it's an opportune day. And it is a day when we are empowered to fix the cause of that first destruction so that the long exile will end. And we find ourselves living in messianic times, right? In the sign of Jesus, we know that third temple, that we are that, right? And so that we can I think of that as a day that I would be aligning myself with that truth, and that curse is ended. Jesus ended that curse, right? So true. So the month of Tevet is associated with the Hebrew letter Ayir. Is that what it is? The Hebrew letter stands for, sorry, I had it written down and I wrote it down wrong. But it pictures an eye, an I. So this month, you also want to align with, it's very important to break alignments and agreements with anything that keeps you seeing things from a poverty mindset. Now, we know that a poverty mindset is not just about money, right? It's about, you can have a poverty mindset. You can have a lot of money and still have a poverty mindset, right? It is not about that. It's about it can be about how you view yourself, how you view your calling, how you view just the things that happen in your life. You want to make sure that you're breaking any agreement of seeing your life through a poverty lens. How are you seeing? This is what keeps us tethered to insecurity and self-sabotaging behaviors of all kinds. When we see things through that poverty mindset, it's that seeing things negatively, waking up and seeing, oh, what's going to happen today, versus it's a you have to make an asserted effort to change your thinking, to change what you say, and to create momentum in the right direction, in the positive direction, in a direction of faith and excitement and a great expectancy of what God is doing in your life. And I know that it's challenging. That is not an easy thing to do. And there might be days where you feel like you're lying, where you feel like I'm doing this. It's a pep talk. And know that when we speak words, our heart and our energy follows. It follows. We create our experience and our existence by the words that we think and speak. And this month is a month that's connected to it. In a sense, you think of the first fruits teaching, right? The Rosh Hadesh, which is where we focus on bringing something that first day of the week or the first day of the month, right? And we're bringing that, we're worshiping God, we're aligning with his truths to make that day holy and set apart. And then God blesses the rest of the week, of the month, right? So think of this month and the idea that it is a picturing of the I, how you're seeing things, really fighting this month to create a shift in that is going to take you all through the year. God is going to meet you here and create a jumping off point for the rest of your year. And how encouraging is it that it is literally this final year on our calendar to prepare us for a whole new season as we enter into a new year. So amazing. So the other thing that it pictures is a spring or a well. So what you want to do is you want to align yourself with seeing a spring or a well. That happens when you have a rhythm. It's aligning yourself with a flow of life, of new life. It's amazing. So it's also associated with the constellation of Capricorn, which is a goat, right? It is a goat, and it is the month to review and to study and align with this initiation into the next phase of life. Ask, where is God taking you this next year? What do you think that is? Take some time to journal about that. Take some time to ask him and be quiet and listen. Breaking down through all of your unbelief or all of those poverty mindsets. If you did not have those, where is God calling you this next year? What is that? Bring that question to him. So I wanted to share this incredible study that I came across in going a little deeper about the meaning of the goat in Hebrew teachings. Now, we know the first thing that pops into my mind thinking about this, and I thought that's where this was going to go, but it didn't. But one of the first things that I thought about was when Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac, right? And all of a sudden, in that last moment when God knew and realized how surrendered Abraham was, the goat appeared, right, in the thistle. There was a sacrificial goat for him. But this is really cool. I've never heard this story before. This is one of those things that's passed down in Hebrew teachings, probably in the Midrash, but this was really cool messaging. So the story goes like this. So sorry, you guys. After an act of deep betrayal, the children were about to reconcile with their father. They gathered together for what was to be the culmination of a month-long effort to rehabilitate a loving relationship. One important question remained, though. Could the children reunite with their father before they had healed the division between themselves? So think about that. What's the first thing that's coming into your mind when you think about that? So the opening verse of this week's teaching describes how would that reconciliation take place. So so here it is. The Jewish people finally completed the construction of the tabernacle after months of tremendous devotion and effort. The tabernacle was the place where the divine presence would dwell and where the people would see that the terrible betrayal, the sin of the golden calf, was forgiven. So we're going back, right, in time, so that God would once again dwell in their midst as he had at Sinai. How could this reconciliation take place? And it was on the 8th day that Moses summoned Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. And he said to Aaron, "Take for yourself a bull calf as a sin offering." Moses told Aaron to offer a calf for atonement. And it was clear to all that the divine presence could not return to the Jewish people before the betrayal of the golden calf was completely healed. So, why a calf? We may need to consult with Rashi for that explanation. But to the people of Israel at the time, it was very apparent. The calf would atone for the sin of the golden calf, right? So Moses continued, "And to the children of Israel you shall speak, saying, take a he goat as a sin offering." But what now? Why a goat? What other unfinished business did the people have to attend to before the glory of God would appear before them? While the calf immediately evokes the story of the golden calf, finding the meaning of the goat is a bit harder. We must turn back to the book of Genesis to discover that indeed the goat played an important role in the most tragic sin of the family of Israel, the sale of Joseph. After the brothers tore their family to shreds by selling Joseph into servitude in Egypt, a sale, by the way, which ultimately led the entire family to relocate to Egypt and descend into slavery, instead of showing remorse, they used a goat for their cover up. So what did they do? They took Joseph's coat and they slaughtered a he goat and they dipped the coat in the blood and they sent the fine woolen coat and they brought it to their father and they said, "We have found this. Now recognize, is this your son's coat?" And of course he recognized it and he said, "It is. A wild beast has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn up." And as the people gathered at the tabernacle waiting for a sign, the divine presence, Moses, taught them that in order to heal the relationship with their father, the children must first heal their relationship with each other. He explained that the jealousy and division which had led to the sale of Joseph was, in fact, the precise character trait which led to the division and separation from God at the golden calf. And in order to find harmony with God, it must be eradicated from their midst. For indeed, the only way children can be in complete harmony with a parent is when they are in complete harmony with each other. So amazing. Isn't that an incredible story? And what I feel is happening when there is such a movement in our generation to connect deeper to the Hebrew roots of our Christian faith. And I think it's very interesting to note that one of Jesus's very last prayers was for unity. It's such a powerful prayer to read, that prayer for unity that he died for. And he prayed for that, and I believe that is where we are headed, to this unity. Amazing. So amongst the tribe associated with Tevet this month is the tribe of Dan, and that represents a time to grow and mature. So Dan was the fifth son of Jacob, and the first son of Rachel by her maid Bilhah. I think that's how you say her name. So this name means to rule or judge or to execute judgment. So this is a time that God is calling us all to maturity, because it takes maturity to rule in a good way, right? We know what it's like to be under immature leaders, and we see that all through the Bible. To see that it takes maturity to rule in the powerful way that God calls rulers and leaders to be. And God is calling us to maturity, especially starting in our mindsets. So be willing to war when God is calling you to stand for your inheritance and not back down. How do you war for that? You war for healing. You go to war, meaning that you're going to fight for your heart, because it is your heart that is connected to how you're going to view and see things. When healing happens in your heart, you're able to see things more clearly. You're able to have more clarity, more judgment. You're able to have more clear boundaries. You're able to move forward instead of being in a place of survival mode and just surviving emotionally in every way. God is calling us in order to step forward, to get out of that mindset of survival, stepping into that, meaning that when things come at us, when we're triggered by things, that we're able to process through them, to lean into them, that it's not going to take us out. It might take us out for a time, as God is saying, oh, I'm revealing something that's in here, and we're going to work through this. And then we're going to prepare to step boldly back into where he is calling us. If you are not spending time at some point during this year to make sure your emotions are under the control of the Spirit of God, they will erupt like a volcano, and Satan will expose that and use that in his favor, whether it's in your marriage, whether that's in your parenting, whether that's in your work, what you're doing, what you're trying to achieve. Satan will use it, and it will erupt. God wants to set that time apart to do this. That's part of what Sabbath is about. It's not just about ceasing from activity. It's about a deep, intimate connection with God, and practicing that and opening up to that. It's not about, it goes from looking forward to a time of rest to looking forward to, oh my gosh, what is God going to reveal with me, with my date with him? Because that time of Sabbath, I always make sure that I have some time during that Friday night sundown to Saturday night sundown, where I have time with just me and God always. And that's the time where he shows up. He's so excited. Imagine if you had a weekly time with your favorite person, your spouse or your best friend or your mom or whoever that is, and you get to have that time, and you both make an effort to be there, and it's a priority. That's what God is calling us to. And man, does he love to show up there. It's so important that we learn to lean into him and partner with him. It's so important because everything we're talking about is stepping into where God is calling you next. That's what this whole community exists for, is for us to be a safe place for each of us to engage in wherever we are. And there's no judgment here. Wherever you are on your journey, you get to plug into a group of like-minded people that are on theirs as well, that are on their journey as well. So we are here, to bridge the gap between just being inspiring and giving you tools to step confidently and boldly forward, wherever that is. And we are ready to do that for 2022. So we are already in the Hebrew month of 5782, in that year, I should say. We're already in the year of 5782. And even this month of Tevet, it's in the month of 5782. How cool is that, to think that we're already there? God is already moving us forward. That progress is already happening. So this time of the year, December, don't align with the worldly sense of spending too much, drinking and eating too much. This is a time to align with a time of preparation, that God is saying, spend time with your family, build memories, spend time with me. Where are we going to go this next year? It is a time for preparation. So you're not starting off the year behind the 8 ball, so to speak, with a whole list of goals that you're trying to overcome yourself. That's not what it's about. That's not even close to what it's about, right? So we're dwelling in those hidden times for preparation in our hearts. And Judy and I have been busy getting prepared ourselves. And for that, I can tell you that these last few months for both of us and individually has been a time of great preparation. God has been, it's been a very intense season for both of us, a time of maturing, a time of pruning. Definitely. I feel like I have not been as engaged here because there honestly have been weeks that I just couldn't. I haven't been able to. There have been times that I've had to rest. There have been times that I just haven't been able to get my mind connected to be able to pull something together. And it's all been difficult, but it's been so good. And for the first time, I can honestly say that it has been a time where I have just surrendered and said, God, I don't know what you're taking me through, but I'm trusting that you have a purpose. And I feel like I'm coming to that space of seeing clearer his purpose and what he's healing me from, so that I don't take that with me, so that I don't take those mindsets with me going forward. His word for me in these last couple months has been that I've been playing small. He said, you have been playing small and it's time for you to level up. It's time for you to step boldly forward. And so I will make a declaration in a sense that I started on my book. I started on my book this past Sabbath, this past Saturday. I had a date with God, and I am blessed that I am married to someone who helps people write books, and he's incredible and an editor and all these things. And in my own being in my own way or not being in aligned with God's timing, whatever it is, opened up the time that we just went after it on Saturday and laid the whole thing out. So I'm very excited that will be, this is the year, 2022 is the year, and I know it. And I'm excited about it. For the first time, I'm excited about spending the time doing it, and feel that there have been such incredible breakthroughs over these last couple of months, honestly. And so my book, Blessed Pilgrimage, is going to be finished this year. So I thank you guys, and so much of what we've been doing here is a part of that book. And so I'm very excited to share more with you guys about that as we go and as I go. So I thank you right now for in advance, because I feel so much support from you guys and from this community, and I feel that. So I appreciate your prayers. I appreciate your support and your encouragement so much. I believe it's what has helped me even get to this point where it's like, it is time. It is time. So I'm excited for that. But we are goodness, if I could kill this right now. We are very excited and preparing for January, because January is a time where we always kick off. We have a Thrive guide that we kick off. We do Thrive coaching. And I am really excited, because one of the things that God has been speaking to me a lot, and we've talked about this, it kind of gets peppered into it tends to get peppered into what I share on Wednesdays, is this idea of dominion rest. And what I've been experiencing is that dominion rest is that place that you get to when you are in a rhythm with God, when you are moving, like we talked about, like a rushing river, that you're aligned with that life, that spring that's moving forward, and God is walking with you in your inheritance. And there's surrender there, there's peace there, but it is a place where you're working towards your goal, your calling. So we are going to be diving deep into that topic, into that idea. We are going to be combining that with our Thrive Guide teaching and coaching this January, which I am so excited about. So I will be dropping the link about that over the course of the next day or so so that you can hold your spot. We are going to be doing coaching. We're going to be doing meditation. We're going to be doing everything that we do and really diving into the depth of aligning with dominion rest, which means to me surrendered and moving in God's calling in our lives. So powerful. So there is a lot to learn. We want to be in that rhythm of partnering with God. So we're going to be learning all about that. So we're revamping our Thrive Guide, and we're going to be doing that. So before we jump into that, and as I finish this up, these last few minutes, I'm going to talk about Dominion Rest, give you guys a little preview of what we're going to be talking about. Okay, so entering Dominion Rest. Okay, so Dominion Rest is not like Sabbath rest in that we don't enter dominion rest from ceasing from activity. To enter dominion rest, you must war and labor and at times struggle, right? So stepping into your calling and stepping into where God is calling you next, there is a combination of that, right? He wants us to rest in that. We're going to be practicing Sabbath and all those things, but God is also going to partner with you in the struggle. We all know that to birth something, it's a struggle. There is labor, and it's all for good, right? It's not to struggle and take 10 steps forward and 4 steps back and feeling like this. No, this is when you are in alignment and you feel God carrying you. You literally feel that. Hebrews 4:11 in the AMP version, it says, "Let us therefore be zealous and exert ourselves and strive diligently to enter that rest." So you only experience dominion rest when your enemies have been defeated. Okay, we're talking about this right here, right? Our mindset. Be aware that the enemy always tries to occupy your inheritance, just like the Canaanites occupied the promised land. But when you drive the enemies from your inheritance, you enter dominion rest. So it's taken me a couple years of learning about this to connect. Dominion rest is when I am stepping and I am living in my purpose. That's what that is. So, processing your inheritance always requires a battle. In Psalm 95, God swore that the Israelites who turned back from the promised land would never enter his rest. Why? Because they weren't willing to fight to take it. They weren't willing. They refused to take dominion over their inheritance and so forfeited the right to possess the promised land. And as a result, they died wandering in the wilderness. That's not us. That is not you. And I know if you are here, that is not you. Okay. What's the number one way that we lose dominion rest or we don't enter into it is unbelief. Is unbelief. That is why we're talking. It's so important that we start here with our mindset. When we speak something that is aligning with unbelief, I want you to take it captive. I want you to repent from agreeing with it and boldly and speak this out loud. If somebody was in your house or in your car, they'd go, "Oh my gosh, that person has lost their mind. They're talking to themselves." Yes, it might take some words. It might take some I think of with tears and submission, we're going to pray against these things and we are going to win this battle against the things that have tried to take away your inheritance. So the other way that they lost dominion rest that they didn't is by refusing to war with their promise. They didn't want to go in. They were afraid. They stepped back. That's what the 9th of Av is all about. God's heartbreak of them not partnering with him, not trusting him. So through disobedience and idolatry. So what happens when we're not moving forward and when we're not in that alignment? We go to idolatry. We disobey, we go to idolatry, we go to things that make us feel better in the moment because we can't even live in the reality of our world because it's so discouraging and depressing. And so we have to numb ourselves. And isn't that where Satan wants us to live? Yes. And we are breaking free. So then in Deuteronomy, it says that they are under a curse. And we're out of that curse. We are out of it. Do not forfeit your place of rest. So determine today to press forward into rest, into that dominion rest. So we're going to be talking about how we enjoy Sabbath while striving for that dominion rest. We're going to be talking about the rhythm. This is so cool. Adam and Eve were tasked with a keeping of the garden. Okay, wait, this is so cool. I've skipped this. I want to go back. Okay, so the garden was man's place of dominion rest, right? That's how God started us out. He put us there, and it was his job to cultivate the land for increase. So there was work to do in the garden before the fall. I think we think that God put us in a garden and just to, I don't know, eat and have sex. Maybe that's what we all thought it was. And then, Eve messed it all up, and Adam listened to her, and the Satan this and Satan as the serpent, right? But there was work to do in the garden. God didn't just put him there to just do that. He had work there. They had to cultivate it, and they were there to increase, right? So work was not the result of the fall. Labor and productivity were part of God's plan for man to fulfill their destiny. That was part of the plan. Adam and Eve even had to work in order to experience rest. You can't experience rest without working, right? It's like light and darkness. It's like how there's a time for every season, there's a time under heaven, right? So from the garden, they were to increase and take dominion and to enlarge their place of rest until it encompassed the whole earth. Amazing. They were to guard the garden and then protect it. And after all, there was already an enemy within. There was already an enemy there. So part of taking dominion and securing their inheritance for the next generation involved man's responsibility and effort to drive the enemy out. They had to be able to see it clearly for what it was, right? To drive it out. But instead, man came into an agreement with the enemy and lost the place of dominion rest that God had given him. The generations which followed have suffered under the curse rather than enjoying dominion rest. In Hebrews 4 is the New Testament counterpart to Genesis 1 and 2. So two different Greek words are used to describe this two different kinds of rest. In verses 1 and 3, the writer uses the word katapaosis. I think that's how you say it, katapaosis, which means a dwelling place or an abode. This is dominion rest. But in verse 9, the word sabosatomos is used, which it's just like it sounds, is Sabbath rest. So we're going to be studying all of this and understanding this, but we must strive to take dominion. So this is very different from the world's kind of view of striving, right? The hamster wheel. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about learning how to strive God's way in this dominion rest. While we are in that process, there remains a Sabbath day to enter into the reality of God's finished work. It's like, listen to the rhythm in that. We need both kinds of rest. We enter dominion rest through our work. We enter dominion rest through his work. We're called to be in a partnership unlike anything we've ever known. Unlike anything we've ever known thus far in our walk with him, in our work, in our jobs, in our homes, in everything. We obtain our dominion rest when we have secured the inheritance God has called us to take. You will not gain your inheritance without war and diligence. This is so amazing because as you are fighting to possess your inheritance, you must also honor the Sabbath and enter into his rest each week. If you do not stop and observe a Sabbath rest as you battle for dominion rest, you will not have the strength to war. So this rhythm and interplay of Sabbath rest and dominion rest propels us into God's cycle of blessing, which releases blessings not just for us, but for those coming after us, because God's cycle and his plan of blessing is always generational. It's always generational. So we are living right now in a time in our world that there are so many things that are trying to destroy our inheritance, and the generations to come. If you aren't feeling that, you're probably not totally awake. If you're not feeling the war against um, our our Christianity, the war against our children, the war against marriage, the war against all of these things, these covenants that God holds so dear. But God wins. But God wins in the end. And the call for us right now is unity, is to unify. And I believe that as we learn more and we align with the rhythms of God's Hebrew, of the roots of our faith, this is what we will get to inherit. We will not be victims of the world and of the world's teachings and of the world's mindsets that have infiltrated the church, have definitely infiltrated the Greek mindsets of American Christianity. And so much of the church is rising up. There is so much more I see of this in the Bema podcast. It's so amazing, and it's growing, and it's sharing so much. There's tons of things. I could list them all. So to end with this right now is God's dealing with the nation of Israel provides a clear picture for us of what not to do, right? As we link our Sabbath rest. One of the reasons they were in the desert, they did not obey what God was calling them to do. They didn't do the Sabbath, they didn't practice these things. So, as we link our Sabbath rest with dominion rest, the joy of the Lord will be our strength as we obtain the victory of walking in the fullness of our destiny. So, understanding these times and cycles are the keys of living continuously in God's blessings. So, yes, we are so excited and so honored to be walking through this with you guys. We cannot wait. Over the next couple weeks, we're going to be talking about, we had an idea that we were going to be doing something in December, and we realized that was just biting off way more than we could chew. And so we have so much to share with you guys next year. We're mapping out so much for next year, but we're starting with Thrive Guide. We're starting with getting complete with the year before as we enter into an understanding of this kind of a partnership. One thing that we will be doing in January is every person will be thinking of a word that God is calling you to align with him on. And so I just wanted to plant that seed. If you aren't already thinking about that, start praying about that and think about it. God put a word on my heart a couple weeks ago, and I'm blown away by how many times I have seen it and heard it since he said it, which just confirmed to me. And on Saturday, when I was praying with him while we were working on the book, the word was very clear, and I'll just share my word here. The word for me this year moving forward is anchored. It's anchored. So I think about these last 4 years since we've been really doing self-care, soul care, Get Inspired movement, and self-care, soul care. My first word was covenant, and it was powerful. My first word was covenant, and God was calling me to understand how I am grafted into this covenant with Abraham. And that was amazing. The next year, it went into partnership. And partnership, which was understanding an even more one-on-one connection. I'm in partnership, on the heels of understanding that covenant. This past year, God has done an incredible work on the word that he gave me, which was intimacy, which is clearly a very deep and connected one-on-one word, taking it so much deeper. And the power of what he has done in my heart this year, and in my relationship with him, and in my relationship with my husband, and in all these areas. And this year it's anchored, and I am so excited and can't wait to see where God is going to take that all next. And a lot of this is going to be in my book. And a lot of what we've experienced here together, what we've built together, is part of this blessed pilgrimage. It's part of this blessed journey. So thank you guys so much for being with me today. I can't really see. I know. I just opened this up so I could see. Oh, I'm so excited to see all of your comments. I will read those later. And I can see who you are, because at this point I cannot. But thank you guys so much. I love you dearly, and have a beautiful and blessed day. And look for us, because Judy and I will be jumping on here a few times this week to talk more and more about what's coming in January. Mwah. praying for you guys and wishing you shalom today.